Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Real Life and Real Love. I am your host, Sarah Michelle, and I'm a sex, love, and intimacy coach for men, women, and couples. So today, Hayley and I are going to be discussing with you this concept of, you'll hear a lot of people in the dating and relationship community talk about how you need to step back and take time to heal, and you need to if you want to be in a relationship with polarity, you need to learn how to be in your feminine so that you can attract a masculine man, which is all true. However, sometimes the content leads you to feel like I need to be perfectly healed. I need to be all the way there. Or I need to be so elevated in my divine feminine that it's really easy for me to express it and stay there all the time, which can be, I think, can be detrimental. Yeah. Because I believe that relationships are how we evolve. Mm-hmm. I believe they're a huge tool in our evolution. I think there's a reason we chose to come as humans and incarnate and do this whole journey. I also think that if we were perfect, we would have just stayed in spirit. Like, what would be the point of coming down to the human experience if there wasn't anything to experience? Yeah. Also, Hayley's going to be here to talk. I didn't give you a chance to introduce yourself. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Hayley Henderson, and I am a stylist. I help women dress to feel their best and use clothes as a tool and a communication piece, because within 1/10 of a second, we judge each other on our outfits. And something that a lot of people don't know is color is a frequency. So we actually get intuitive messages and energetic messages through color, and we don't know necessarily consciously what that is, but you can use that to your advantage, not for manipulation, but actually just for communication pieces. This is why people will wear, if they want to stand out, they'll wear a non-traditional color suit to the boardroom. So that, if you wear like fluoro green, it's a very different message. The exact same cut in like a navy or a gray or a black. It's the same suit in a different color, different information. It communicates different words, energy, and we actually pick up on those frequencies. So like green, if it's like an earthy green, is going to be your heart chakra, it's going to be love, it's going to be growth, whereas a fluoro green is going to say something completely different, and we pick up that information all the time. So I essentially help women wear their everyday clothes so that they're happy, confident, and just living their best life. But I also actually help them understand, like stepping into different situations, how to communicate so sharply, so fiercely, that one, they already felt great, but two, their message is heard loud and clear, and there are no doubts what she is here to say.
All right. Well, thank you. So let's hop back to it then. Today we are talking about, my mind just went blank. Like being perfectly imperfect, I guess, is a phrase that's used a lot.
Yeah, not throwing people out and realizing that relationships, like, I think of it like the space between us. So, which I think is how I'm able to have such intimate international relationships with people all over the world, because it's not about necessarily the physical content, it's the space between you and what you nurture in that space. And so you can have a physical relationship, but you can also have a relationship. So the space between us is what essentially we're looking after. So when you first meet somebody, you've got nothing in that space, so you're trying to fill it up. You're like, what's your favorite color? What do you like to do? But after a couple of dates, you've had a couple of experiences, a few different conversations, and you're filling out that space. And then you decide what you do together, and it's the space between you, and then how close that space gets. And I think it's so important to recognize that, and to recognize that we're good people that make good and bad choices. And if we judge so harshly all the time, one, ourselves, thinking I have to be so perfect before somebody else is ever going to accept me, or the other person that you're in a relationship or potential relationship with is judging them as having to be perfect when it's not realistic, you're not going to be happy. You're not going to be satisfied. Nobody's ever going to measure up. You're never going to feel like you measure up. I kind of think of it like when we ever hear any advice from somebody, some of it's relevant and some of it's helpful. But if I ever hear anything that sounds like it's perfect, I'm like, where's that coming from? Like, we're not. We're real. Like, we have blemishes. We don't get good sleeps. Like, our children sometimes scream. Like, things happen. We can't control them. And especially, like, when it comes to relationships, like, if you read through, oh, what's a book I'm trying to think? There's one called The Buddha Dated. Like, if you read a book like that, you might think, okay, cool. Once I finish that book, I'm going to be able to go on date. And if you get to the end of the book, you're like, it didn't help. Okay, I'll get another book. All right, I'm going to do Calling in the One, which is by the same author as Conscious Uncoupling, and my mind has gone blank right now too. But if you read that and you feel like you get to the other end of it, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to call in the one now. You get to the end of it and you're like, oh, I just don't feel like I'm perfect and I can necessarily do that. You have to remember that the space between you is something that the space between you, it's a two-person job. And this is why when relationships become lopsided, we energetically know one person is looking after that space and not both. And that's when you get to decide, hey, like there are two people in this relationship, and I always picture it's the space between you. If one person's taking care of all of it, it's actually only one person's relationship, and the other person is just like got it ticked on their box on Facebook. It's not actually a real relationship, or literally they just sleep in the bed or just eat the food. But I think it's so important to realize it's a participation sport. It's growth together. Like you don't, when you're in a relationship and you're having sex with somebody, it's an orgasm together. One person may orgasm, but it was together. It wasn't by yourself. Like you actually come at this together. There's the masculine and the feminine. We've got, the yin and the yang. We have hot and cold. We have all of these different things, and we freaking love it. Like feminine women, when they see a masculine man, just melt on the floor. Like you've seen all the memes about how there's like, if he's covered in tats and he's got a beard, like you'll see me on the floor because they just melt in the presence of what their energetic and emotional and ideal principles are and feelings I get about that is like, oh, that thing would take me and I would be here for it. Like they have that feeling and they have that emotion, and I'm talking the truth. And I think it's to recognize that it's not one-sided, that it's about being human, and that the other person, like, I don't know if you've ever heard anybody watching this video would have ever heard men talk about women. They don't want a perfect woman. They want somebody they can have a relationship with.
Yeah. Totally distracted me with your comment there. I agree. Like, I don't want a perfect guy either, because to me, if the guy is too much more perfect than me, it feels like he's more of like a father or a teacher figure in my life than a partner, right? I'm looking for someone. Like, I understand that in a long-term relationship, there's going to be periods of time where one is leading and the other is learning or taking space to heal or whatever. And it'll kind of, give and take there. But I wouldn't want to consistently be too far behind someone or too ahead of someone because they're just draining.
Yeah.
I think what we're talking about, though, in total, everything you're talking about, I always talk about it as like giving grace, being compassionate for the human experience. And I always relate it back to my children. I relate a lot of stuff back to my children because it's really how I learned. It's really how I learned unconditional love, that and pets. But I wasn't raised in an environment where I felt like it was unconditional love. And I hope that if my parents ever see this episode, they're not hurt by it, because they were great parents. But the feeling I had growing up was not that it was unconditional. So as an adult, I took time to think through, like, what makes love unconditional? Is it possible for love to be unconditional? Because there's definitely leaders out there that speak up and say, hey, love can't be unconditional, and here's why. I disagree with them. I do believe there is a version of love that can be unconditional. So I learned a lot of things through my children, is what I'm trying to say. And one of the things some of the things I always try to remember about my children is they're their own spirits, their own soul. They came here with their own intentions, with their own lessons to learn and that sort of stuff, right? So, do I want to support them and help them and love them through everything? Yes. But I don't want to rescue them from stuff. I don't want to prevent them from having the experiences their soul came to experience and stuff like that. And so there's a certain amount of like standing back and just allowing the other person to figure it out and trust that they can do it.
Mm.
That's what I do a lot with my partner in my relationship. Like I'll be talking to my friends and they'll be so surprised that essentially that I'm not meddling, right? Like, don't you want to tell him how to do it? But don't you want to make it happen faster? Like all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, no, because to me, it robs him of his, well, it robs him of his, I want to say authority. What's the other A word I'm looking? Autonomy, his autonomy as a person. But I think it also robs him of his masculinity because the masculine likes a challenge. The masculine likes to figure it out. And you know what? Like, who really cares if I have the answer and we could get it done today or if it takes him 6 weeks or 6 months? Which I know that comment is going to blow some people's minds because they're going to be like, what? I have a friend right now that's like, why would you wait 2 years? And I'm like, because I got a whole life to live. Like, things will line up when they're supposed to. But that's part of being in my feminine, is just
Yeah.
trusting in the process and being like, everything's here for my highest good and it's going to happen.
And if
And
you
just,
take, you're being the mom, like, if you're telling him what to do, that is so not hot and it is so not helpful.
no, it would ruin the relationship for me to be, because what it would do is it would turn into me nagging all the time and him being resentful. And it's like, okay, well, why do I want to ruin the relationship over something that he's either going to eventually resolve on his own, or if it becomes a major issue and it ruins the relationship or whatever, like maybe this wasn't the right relationship for us. Like I'll know when I'm in my feminine and I'm using my intuition because I'm in my feminine, so I'm connected. I know when to have the conversation and when to step back. I know how involved to be and how much to like, take my hands off of it and just let it be. And I always know like when to leave, that sort of stuff. Like I can hear my angels in my head when it's time to leave a relationship or time to set a new boundary or whatever. Let me say this, if I don't listen to my angels, I feel it in my body, something comes up. I might start having bad migraines, heavier periods, like hip pain, something's going to come up. So I just trust in the process and allow that to happen.
Mm-hmm. And allowing them to be human, because a lot of people don't really talk about it, but a lot of men, when they grow up as young boys, weren't allowed to be themselves. They weren't allowed to fail. They weren't allowed to be girly. They weren't allowed to try on different clothes. They weren't allowed to step outside the line. They weren't allowed to cry. They weren't allowed to say, like, there was so many stupid fucking rules. And when you cage something wonderful, because men are wonderful, if you cage something wonderful, what is going to be the result? But if you can, as a woman, like, allow this to be real and you surrender into like being a recovering perfectionist, you do not need to be his mom. You don't need to tell him what to do. In fact, you just get to witness and experience this human being in front of you. Like when they figure stuff out, and it's normally different to the way we would have done it because we're different. Oh, I just freaking love it. It's like, oh my God, that was so hot. Show me again.
Show me again.
Show me again. I am probably not going to.
The point though is like there are things that we find hot about our partners. And if we're going through these moments or periods of time where one of them's facing a challenge, like don't dwell on it because you're going to just tie up all your energy in that negativity and you're not going to be manifesting the thing that you desire anyway. So like remind yourself of the parts that you do enjoy and create that. So I'm trying to think of an example to make it a little more concrete here. But like, let's say that your partner is what's something a partner would struggle with? Working too much. They're struggling with working too much. Maybe instead of always getting so angry that they are working late or whatever, start to see the pattern of, okay, well, because they're working constantly, I know that the only day they have is Saturday. Make your Saturdays special and enjoy the Saturday. And if you need to have any communication about, hey, you got to cut back at work or something, go ahead and have that. I'm not saying like let the person walk all over you or don't have your needs met by any means. But you don't need to sit there in the evening and dwell on the fact that he's at work and not at home, right? Like you could say, okay, well, clearly he's making this choice right now. Am I willing to allow him to make that choice? Yes. Okay, what can I do with my time instead? And start like going out and seeing your friends, start journaling, start catching up on your favorite shows, start calling your mom. I don't whatever it is that you want to do, start doing it and fill your time with joy.
Yes.
And that's going to be, that's going to be super magnetic because you're going to be in your feminine, you're going to be full of joy, and when he gets home, you're going to be full of all that good energy and he's going to want to be coming home to that. So whether you see it immediately or not, that energy is going to be or those memories are what's going to be circulating in his mind when he's working late. Dang, I wish I could be home with this. Instead of being resentful and hard and pushing him away and stuff when he gets home because you're so angry that he's not there, like that's not going to feel good to come home to.
You can do so many things. Like I was thinking what I would say to a client would be like, obviously go out and join a class, do something, have a hobby. If you need to be at home, put on your fucking favorite lingerie and pour yourself a glass of wine and catch up on a show. Sit on the sofa feeling your freaking best. And if he doesn't see it, not your problem. You felt amazing. You'll have a bath, you'll go to bed, and then if he gets home like super late and you're already in bed, and be like, you so missed out. Good luck with that. Like, you do you. And he is just going to be like, what do you mean I missed out? Like, I was literally like pushing paper while you were like feet up on lingerie, wine on my sofa. Like, it's going to be totally confusing. And you have had the best time. You've exerted no energy. You've had a really good time. Like, it's going to be all wins. In fact, he may actually buy more lingerie in your favorite kind that may be expensive, but you never let yourself have. Like, you're just going to get more of the good stuff. And he's going to realize you're not that person who's going to like try and grab him, nag onto him. You're allowing him the space, like you said before, you're allowing it because it's a decision that you make in that space between you, but you're not rocked by it. In fact, you're going to rock your own world. And if he doesn't want to be in that space, well, then don't. Doesn't mean to say I'm going to have less fun.
I had a conversation with, this is all just reminding me of feminine energy and how much fun it is to get in your feminine and be playful in a polarized relationship. And I was with my boyfriend recently, and I was saying, I wish I could remember the exact conversation. It would probably make this story better. But he was getting ready to leave for work, and I was saying something about how his pantry needed reorganized. I fucking love that stuff. Okay. It's not that I love organizing, it's that I love feng shui. So anytime I'm organizing and decluttering and shifting the energy, like it is fun for me. So I said something to him about it, and he said something about how he had to go to work, but he seemed like all disappointed. And also, like, why would you want to reorganize a pantry? Sort of, that doesn't sound fun. And I was like, oh, it's going to be blast. You want me to put on my lingerie and send you a picture of me in the pantry? Like, I like posed and did like a little thing, and he's like, yeah. I think his mind was like, what? Like, is that a possibility? Yes, of course. I want a picture of you in lingerie in my pantry.
Yeah.
That's like the playful and the fun side of being in a relationship and keeping that spark alive and that sort of stuff is just being creative, being spontaneous. That's the fun part of the feminine, is that she brings that joy and that play and spontaneity to the relationship.
Without it being that innocent, childlike stuff that is often revered as being the feminine and the fun and the best. It's not. It is you in a thong in the pantry. It is you like teasing him in some kind of way. It is you just doing whatever you want and having lunch with the girls and not giving two whatevers about where he is. That is being in your feminine and being like in that joy and in that fun, because literally you will be like, you're building your neural network connections for this to be a habit, and your biochemicals will be pulsating throughout your body, and men are so physically present in their body. Him being near you, it's basically like he can detect you just had delicious fun, and he was like, oh my god, I didn't get to taste that fun. Like, they are so in tune. Like, if you go and have fun every single day, you don't need to tell him necessarily what you did. For him to be near you, it's like he like smells it and detects that your body is full of juicy goodness, and he's just like, I would like a taste. Like, I would like to get close to that. They freaking love it. And you didn't tell him nothing, because they are so in their body, which not a lot of people talk about, like that powerful presence that a man is. And if you are doing things in your body, you don't need to tell him. He is so intuitive and he is so switched on. He doesn't know he knows. I love this conversation with men, because every single time a man's like, I do know. How do you know I know? Nobody's told them that the amount of good stuff they bring into a relationship, the amount of like physical presence that we've talked about in past episodes, that strong container that they just provide the container, or like I think of, they're the bookshelf, and we're the love that fills the bookshelf with like flowers and books and whatever we decide to put on that bookshelf, whatever it is, skulls and bones. It can be anything that lights our fire. And the man is like, I'm gonna hold it. Absolutely. Look at this thing. And he's so proud of it, right? And you know, and you hear it in their voice and you see it in their eyes, and they just like this magic. And all you did was figure out what made you happy and healthy. And you just went about in doing that. You didn't nag, you weren't being apologetic, you weren't making excuses, you weren't like stepping outside of your line and getting rid of what worked for you. And he like loves it. And this can be in times when things are tricky between you. Can be in times of transition from one stage of a relationship to another, or there may have been some bad things that happen and some arguments. But if you keep being yourself and you do the things that you love, you wear the clothes, you see your girlfriend, you find healthy outlets, you do really awesome things, he's going to want to get really close to you, and he's going to be like, can I just like, he'll want to like touch, and he'll want to like taste, and he'll just be like, I don't know what you did, but like, can I have some, or can I just be close to you? And he'll want to hang out.
That is like one of my, I've never had a guy do this, but it is totally one of my fantasies. You keep saying taste over and over. I love dessert. Fucking love dessert. And it is one of my fantasies to just have a guy see me enjoying my dessert so much that he just kisses me while I have dessert in my mouth so that he can taste the dessert too. Like, I don't know what about that is so hot, but it's like, I want to experience that someday. So I'm sending that manifestation out to the universe. I'll let you know when it comes in. But I do remember when I was dating the kid's dad, before we got married, I wanted French silk pie so bad. I love French silk pie. And we went and we got French silk pie, and we were sitting on his parents, because we were in college. So we were sitting on his parents' floor watching TV, and I was eating it, and he looked over and I was crying. He's like, are you crying? I was like, it's just so fresh. I love French silk pie. And at that time I was eating a lot of French silk pie. And a lot of times you'd go and you get it from Village Inn, and the crust wasn't fresh. It was like more crunchy. It was older. And he thought it was like hilarious and sweet. Like, he held me and stuff. And he told that story for years. I'm sure that if I brought it up today, he would be able to remember where it was and everything, because he was just like floored that someone could get that much pleasure from food. Because I mean, men enjoy their food. I'm sure they do if we had a conversation with them. But I think for the most part, masculine men who spend most of their time in their masculine, it's just more of a fuel that they need to keep going with their day rather than an actual full body experience. And I was totally in it that day.
And he wanted to get closer. He wanted to understand, and he was curious. And he's like, whatever is going on over there. And these are those bridges that you can have between difficult times or in good times, or just being yourself in general in a relationship, and knowing that he may not understand what is going on, but he probably wants to, and he'd probably like, whatever you're experiencing, I want it.
You can keep talking. I just got an idea, and you know that if I don't write it down, I always forget these. So give me one moment and you carry the conversation.
Back to the beginning. So we were talking about how a lot of people talk about how you need to be perfect. This is where we started off. And different, you'll need to go out and heal yourself completely before you get into relationships. But the reality, like, even just the stuff that we've talked about for the last 25 minutes, it shows you, and in your experience, if you reflect on it, men don't expect that from you at all. They just want to live. They want to experience stuff. And you'll hear it in what they say as well. Like, if you look at social media profiles, I mean, yeah, those as well. And I was going to say, what's the other one? Dating profiles. What they're saying is, I want to live, is what's written between the lines. They're like fishing. They've got car stuff. They've got really terrible photos of them with all their friends like in this one spot. Like, yes, it is annoying because you don't always know which guy in the photo is and you're trying to figure that out, but essentially what their profiles are saying is, I am living and I want to live, and I want somebody who wants to live and experience with me. He's not saying, I want you to be, I forget whatever the perfect measurements are, blonde, blue eyes, little waist, whatever is the drama that somebody decides is the perfect ideal, which is based on marketing, which we could get into and we're not going to. But it's not reality for them. Like, the amount of men that, when they are hear what a lot of us women think internally about our bodies, they literally want to fall off their chair. Like, where did you get that idea from? And it's like, well, I've always thought this. Like, well, it started somewhere. They go on this manhunt of like, that's not okay. They want us to be real. They want us to be ourselves. They want us to be happy. And they're happy to get into a relationship. And you're a, and any advice that tells you anything else, even if it's your own conclusive advice that you came to, it's not true. Perfection doesn't exist. Like, it's a myth, and it literally kills your sense of self. It kills your enjoyment. It kills your feminine essence. Like, when you try and perfect something,
That's true. Yeah.
drained of his attraction to you. He's like, I don't care how fucking perfect the bed is. He doesn't care because he probably want to mess it up. Whereas we're so hell bent on, those straight lines need to be straight with the base of the bed because that's in a straight line, so this needs to be in a straight line. So
I'm a bed maker.
get annoyed with it. Like, it's not just the bed, it's not just the kitchen, it's not just the house, it's not just the car, it's even conversations. It's, worried about like which kind of friendship circle you're going to go and hang out with and how they treat you and blah blah blah. If you listen to what a man, like in a relationship with you, or potentially, or just a male friend, or even a dad, their response to that fake perfection, which doesn't exist, is like, honey, just be yourself. Just wear your clothes that make you happy and go. They will say that. They'll support that. They'll drop you off. They'll pick you up. They don't want you to be perfect. They don't, like, if you talk to anybody that literally is like looking at their perfect profiles on dating sites, they say they're fake. They're just like, that's not a real person. They're like, how can you actually be this fulfilled and happy and want a relationship? You don't have time for one. So many men say that. They're just like, whenever I see like a dating profile that looks perfect, that person is obviously lying, or their life is so perfect and busy they don't want a relationship with me, because men know they're flawed. They're not looking for the perfect woman. They want somebody to meet them where they are, or somebody who maybe, because they do like dreaming big, so they may be looking for their ideal woman, but she's probably going to snore, or she may have smelly shoes, or she's like, because these are just things that, like, I've heard people worry about that I've never thought about. I was like, talk in my sleep. I've never thought about that as being like what is it called? Not a selling point, the opposite. Like,
Deal breaker?
yeah. I was like, oh, that's dumb. You can't control.
That's dumb.
Like, you can't control that. Like, there needs to be a reality. There needs to be, like, I've got crooked teeth and my skin breaks out when I eat and drink dairy products. Like, that can't be a deal breaker. I just have to have these teeth. We'll pay to get different ones. I can still talk and smile. They still chew the food and do the right thing for my digestive system. And in terms of milk, just have something different. Like, a man's not going to be like, oh, that's a deal breaker because I was perfect straight out of the womb. Forgetting that's also feminine, but anyway.
I will say I watched this TikTok, and I'm going to paraphrase because it's been too long, but I sent it to my best friend who has been married the entire time I've been going through my dating journey. So she's been enjoying all the stories. And it was like this lady that was like me ignoring all the red flags from my ex who I'm still pining over. And, she's just showing like she's enjoying her time and stuff. And then she's like, me going out on dates and ruling out guys because they drink Pepsi, not Coke. They like whatever. And she's like saying all these simple things. And I was laughing so hard because it was totally me. Like now that I've seen the process, I think there's a difference when you have like a connection or a love with someone. It's easier to give this grace. It's not about, I want to be clear because of the example I just gave. It's not about ignoring red flags, but it's about like really sitting with them and deciding, are they deal breakers, like you were saying? Or are they just things that maybe this person isn't aware of they're doing that they might be willing to change or do differently? Is it something that is coming up because of a past trauma? It's some sort of pattern. A lot of us don't even realize how many things we do simply because we were raised with parents that do them. It wasn't really something that we consciously said, hey, this is what I want to grow up and do, or who I want to be, or how I want to spend my Saturday. We just do it because that's what our parents did. And so this whole idea of grace that I keep coming back to has really come from a selfish place. As I've always said, when I'm in a relationship with someone else, I just want you to tell me, like, give me an opportunity to change it. I know who I am. I'm not going to change the core of who I am for you. But if you come to me and you say, Sarah, I really hate that you make the bed every day because it feels more inviting to me to get into a messy bed for some reason. Like, I could live with that. I wouldn't want you to be like, oh, she must not be my person because she makes the bed every day and I don't like that, and just go the other way. And then I'd be sitting over here spinning out like, what happened? I thought we were good together. So I'm always trying to give the same grace to my partner that I expect or desire in return.
A lot of men do give a lot of grace. Like, you'll hear guys that are like, oh yeah, she likes to go out with the girl. She likes to do this, and it's nothing to do with him. It's nothing to do with their normal life. And they're just like, that's who she is. And there isn't a part of them that's like, oh, that's so bad that she drinks that much wine, or it's so bad that she has that many shoes, or whatever is the thing. They don't see that as like a red flag. They just like, oh, can I afford that? Do I have time for that? Like, they just make allowances and just go, okay. Like, I'm a talker, so I'm very honest about it, and I say that to men, and that's part of their evaluation. Like, they're not expecting me to be quiet if I'm not a quiet person, and that's just something that they decide. They're like, And often I will date quieter men, and in the past I thought that was probably a problem, but most of the time they're like, it's fine because you fill the space and I don't have to talk and I can just be myself. And I'm like, okay.
Just sit back, listen, observe. As someone who prefers to be more quiet, I can totally understand that. I love being around someone who can carry a conversation. Maybe that's why we work so well together. I don't know. I also love being with someone who is more outgoing and is willing to take the lead when we're in a public space. Because I know this is maybe a shock to some of the people who have been following me, but I'm not authentic in my business, but like I know that I need to be outgoing with my business. So
Yeah.
I really have to use my extroverted energy in my business. So by the time I've used that in my business, I'm really ready to go back to my natural introverted style in my personal life with my kids, with my family, with whoever I'm dating, that sort of thing. So I love being in a relationship with someone who can take it. Take
Yes.
the lead. Take it. Doesn't sound right. Take the lead.
It is. And these are just conversations. So
Yeah.
you don't need the perfection. You can just have a conversation or come up with an agreement, which we do talk about a lot, is having agreements with people and having that as a real conversation and not being scared. If this is something that you're really worried about, a man is going to be like, she is so worried. What is she worried about? And he's going to start thinking, is it my face? Is it the size of my thing? Like, he's going to worry about stuff that it's nothing, it's never anything like what, but he's trying to figure out and fix things because he wants to fix things.
Yeah. Well, this was a wonderful conversation. I had a good time and I took some notes this time so that we can keep talking on some of these topics. Definitely, if you've been watching our episodes and you have any questions, comments, any ideas you'd love to have us cover in future episodes, please let us know. We've done that before I've done that for a past client. Actually, write in and let us know if there's something you need us to cover that you want to show your partner. That's what we did before. She was like, hey, my partner keeps doing this and it drives me nuts, but we watch your stuff. Like, could you talk about? And I was like, sure. So I let Hayley in on it and we did the whole conversation. She ended up sharing it with her partner. So anyway, we're always down for some communication from everyone watching. Let us know. And we'll see you next week on the next episode. Thank you, Hayley.